Hello, yes, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, live from Studio 2, the classroom. I know it was advertised that I was going to be coming from the boat park this week, but conditions are way too blustery to be able to be in the boat park at this time, so I thought it was appropriate to be back in the classroom. If you are later on, which means after Wednesday probably, that means that it won't be live. So any comments that you put, I won't be responding to them live, but I will respond in the comments, and perhaps I'll answer your question in the following Q&A next week. Lovely. Oh, hello, Hutchie. Watching while carpet fitting. Nice. Hello, Ends Siren. Great to have you with us as always. You seem to be with us. You're very reliable these days. I've got a cup of tea. It's Wonderberry green tea. Lovely. I would usually choose Amstel, of course. Okay, so I'm just going to crack on with some of the preloaded questions, if I may. And the first one is coming from Mauricio, who says, can you show how to make the downhaul scale? What is the distance between each number on that scale? Well, here we go. So he's just saying, on the downhaul scale, like, you know, I've been selling the stickers for your downhaul numbers. The scale would sit at the bottom of the mast, something like this, where it's numbered 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there it says beans, of course, or something similar. Now, to be honest, it really doesn't matter the spacing between the numbers. These numbers are there for your reference, because pretty much you could say, unless they happen to be the same batch of boats, like maybe at the World Championships in Florida, where all the boats had come out of the factory at the same time. They were all exactly the same age and they were all brand new. Unless that is the situation, the stretch in the mainsail is always going to be slightly different. So these numbers are very much for your own reference, and you will learn which number is appropriate to pull the sail down to in different situations. The way that I would gauge it is full beans on the scale is going to be the hardest you ever are going to pull the downhaul, or perhaps a bit harder, because over time you're going to be pulling it further down over time. I could tell you there's a guy I do know called John Bishop. He's a skateboarder, but he used to be a pro laser sailor, and he used to downhaul his laser sail so much that beans would have started off there at the start of the season, and by the end of the season it would be down here. He is stretching the sail, and you will do the same. So when the downhaul's on minimum, here's the sail, there's the clue of the sail. I've put it in the wrong place, of course. I'd put it a bit higher up, maybe between 1 and 2. So, you know, that's the minimum amount of downhaul. Then when it's absolutely cranked, like use the main sheet to get more downhaul on. If you pull the main sheet in really hard and then pull the downhaul on, you'll get a lot more downhaul on. And when the wind is really cranking, especially on a 16, you want to be getting the downhaul in as much as you possibly can. So then for absolutely crank, that wants to be 5. But in answer to the original question, it really doesn't matter what the distance is between these numbers, because it is all for your reference. What I do on a boat that I'm using, if I haven't got a calibration sticker, is I'll just use some tape, like some electrical tape or some gaffer tape, and I'll put one mark with tape on the mast where the minimum is, and then one mark where the maximum is, the minimum being the most important, because there you know if you need to let the downhaul off because the wind's gone light, you ease it to that mark and you know where you are. So there we go. So in summary, all boats are going to be slightly different because of the different stretch in the sail and perhaps even the different stiffness of the mast as well. We have plenty of people tuning in. Okay, we have got Pesty Pester. I think that's Andrew, isn't it? Hello, is there anybody in there? Just nod if you can hear me. Yes, absolutely. N Siren loves tea. Very good. Hello, good morning, Robin. Great to have you on board. Hello, Kurosh. Hello, Michael in Arkansas, USA. Brilliant. Yeah, Kuro 5150. Good afternoon. Getting ready for the season now. Just sent per rudders and boards for painting. Not as cool as your Tiger boards, but bright yellow. Oh man, that is going to look fantastic. Yeah, when anybody with anything other than white rudder blades or black or original, you know, a lot of people's rudder blades are kind of like a brown color, I think. But if you've got some pretty popping rudder blades or dagger boards, send us some pictures on Show Us Your Cat. We'll do a gallery of blades. I think that would be very nice. Yeah, looking forward to seeing them. Hello, Germans fan. Last Friday had my first mast. Oh dear, falling in the middle of the lake. Quite an experience. Yeah, I think that can be quite emotional. But the good thing with a lake is you're always going to get blown to an edge. So cautionary tale there for anybody sailing not on a lake. Just check your rigging again. And we've actually got John Bishop on here now, coming at you from a chilly Dorset, chilly on the south coast of England. Do check out John's skateboarding channel if you like what I do here and you like the style of delivery, but you want to see it better and about skateboarding, then check out John's channel. It's very good. He is the same age as me and he is taking you through how to learn every maneuver on a skateboard, and with all the thrills and spills thrown in. Yasure Pano. Oh, it's Georgia. Hi, Georgia. Yes, Georgia. Yogia. See you soon. Looking forward to it. Who has been watching the America's Cup, said N Siren. Yeah, I think we all have. That was an absolute classic. Right, Kurosh says, I have a tapered Mastrom carbon fibre mast. Nice choice. When I pull the downhaul on too hard, firstly, I have to stop you there. I believe there's actually no such thing as too hard to pull the downhaul on. I could see the top of the mast bending rather a lot. Can you risk cracking or breaking your mast from too much downhaul? As far as I know, unless you've put on some ridiculous purchase on your downhaul, I think up to about 12 to 1, maybe even 16 to 1 is feasible. But you're more likely to either break the locking mechanism or rip the luff of the sail before you're going to break the mast. With the carbon mast, the thing to look out for is if it's a very strong wind, this is another bit of, this could save your mast. If it's a really strong wind and you capsize, especially, before you bring the boat back upright, let the downhaul off completely, because one thing that can damage your carbon mast is if you've got the downhaul on tight and it's really windy and the sail is flogging like an absolute witch, that flogging could actually do some damage to your mast. So let the downhaul off, especially before you bring the boat up from a capsize, or if you want to stop for a break. So like, for example, before the start of a race, what I would do, because I've generally got the downhaul on, if it's windy, I'll definitely sail with a decent amount of main sheet on, but I'll let the traveller out. So I haven't got the mainsail flogging. You won't see anybody in like a tornado competition with a flogging mainsail, not ever, because it is bad for your mast. With the aluminium masts, the thing that can damage those, downhaul related, is if you're going from an upwind point of sail to a downwind point of sail in a heavy wind with a lot of downhaul on, and you turn downwind, easing out loads of main sheet. So you're allowing the mast to take all of that pressure of bearing away with the downhaul on. The downhaul is going to put the mast under compression. You can break the mast. I don't know if anybody saw the video that I did many years ago of snapping the Tornado aluminium mast. That was because I had repeatedly bore away without easing the downhaul. That was quite a costly mistake. Well, quite a costly lesson to learn, but I certainly haven't done it again since. So I think I'll leave that there for how can you damage your mast with the downhaul. Okay, but we used to say, what is the maximum amount of downhaul? You pull it as hard as you can, and then you pull it a bit more. That is how much. Jerome, hi. Bonjour from Oloron in France. We have Willard and all right, I'm not going to try to pronounce that one. Bonjour, mon ami. Great to have you with us. Conrad. Hey, Joe. What's your favourite boat in the Wildwind Vasiliki fleet? Yeah, it's in brief, I would say in above 25 knots of wind, it's Hobie 16 number 3. In less than 25 knots of wind, it is Bad Boy 94, the Tornado, with the C2 very much coming in just after. Those are the boats that I enjoy sailing the most. Hi, Oscar. Great to have you with us. Should I get my cat airbrushed? Yeah, I think it's just personal taste. If you saw, I think it was about maybe 5 or 6 Show Us Your Cats ago, there was, I think it was from the Pirates. Where are they from? From Arizona, the Arizona Pirates. There was a lot of boats which had been painted in various ways. So if you haven't seen that one, refer back to that one and see if you like the results. But it's very much a one-way street. Once you've done it, you can't undo. Well, undoing it is going to be quite a costly, what would you say, costly process. There we go. Timon. Hi. How are you? Yeah, all good here, thanks. It is certainly warming up a bit. Conditions a little blustery today, but it's not cold anymore. That's a good feature. My sailing season in Germany on the Baltic Sea starts again in 2 weeks. How are your preparations going? Yeah, at the moment I'm a one-man team, so I haven't been able to do that much in the boat building department. I've now prepared an FX1. I don't know if you saw the mast going up video. Cool. That was a lot of fun to learn how to do that. So I've got an FX1. I've got a Tiger, which I'm actually going to do the same mast raising process with. I was going to do it earlier on this afternoon, but it is blowing a blustery gale, so I thought it would be a poor choice to do that. And then unfortunately, the rest of the boats are all packed in such a way that I'm going to need a lot of help to get them out. So I'm waiting for the workforce to arrive, who are getting here next week. That is very exciting. Hopefully there'll be some Saganaki cheese on the table ready for their arrival. Hi, Paul. Paul in North Devon's got 2 Hobies. One is a project at the moment, so the videos are very helpful. I'm glad that the videos are helping. It's just really nice to know that the videos are helping so many people from so many places with so many boats. German's fan says, here we go, it wasn't the rigging that failed, it was the toggle that snapped somehow. But luckily we had a paddle and a nice power. Oh, a rower helped back to the shore. Nice. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by the toggle. Maybe it's like you mean like the mast tang or the bow tang. Oh, the toggle. I think the toggle is actually what Hobie called what I call the twisty bit. So at the bottom of your rigging, this is the chain plate where the shroud will pin in. There's a shroud, and underneath the chain plate, standard Hobie rigging, is you've got this part that goes like that with a twist in it, which then attaches to the hull. That, I believe, is what Hobie called the toggle. Yeah, the twisty bit. Yeah. Yeah, quite unusual for one of those to fail, because that's quite a sturdy piece of stainless steel. Goodness. Hein. Hi, Hein. Good to hear from you. What is the best exercise to go faster? That's big. Playing the main sheet. That's what it is. Yeah, I think that's your short answer there. If you really want to know how to go faster, I'd have to point you in the direction of the How to Sail Faster video. There's a lot of How to Sail Faster videos, but the single-handed How to Sail Faster video from late September, early October last year, that one was quite, I think, a concise delivery of how to go faster. But should we go through it again just quickly? So we start off, if we're looking at top speed, we're always looking for top speed. Start off on a reaching course like this. Make sure having enough wind is very important to going faster. More wind, you'll go faster as long as you can stay in control. Then get established on this reaching course. Wind is from the top, as always, and get established and comfortable on this reaching course. And then once you're established and comfortable, get into the Joyrider TV position at the back. And every time the hull lifts, ease a bit of main sheet and turn more downwind. The amount you want to turn downwind is so that you can keep the windward hull out of the water. If you sail too far downwind and the hull comes down, that means you have gone too far. So by getting as far downwind as possible with this hull in the air, that's what's going to give you the most speed. So every time you go to bear away, ease a bit of main sheet. Once you're on the new course, pull it back in, just watching the leeward bow, making sure that as you pull it in, there's no chance you're going to send that leeward bow under the water. But that is the how to go as fast as possible kind of thing. The other way to go faster is to carry a GPS so that you actually know when you're going faster rather than just guessing. All right, so we've got Richard on board. Hi, Richard. Do you think we'll be allowed to come and stay at Wildwind this summer? I hope so. I hope so too. Yes, everything is pointing to yes, 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 and thrice yes. You are coming, whether you like it or not. We're opening in the middle of May, and we're not expecting many people in May because I don't know how many nationalities are actually going to be allowed to come here. But whoever can come here are going to be more than welcome. We are going to be open and it's going to be nice. And then from the start of June, that's when we're expecting guests from the UK to start coming out and the Netherlands. I think the guys from Germany and other countries might be allowed in a bit earlier. But the middle of May is when we're opening. So yes, as long as there's not something else ridiculous just lurking, waiting to get us. There we go. Hi, Jack and Linda. Nice to have you with us. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for tuning in. It's because you guys tune in and watch the videos. That's why it all keeps coming. If you didn't watch them, then I'd stop making them. So there you go. It's all down to you guys. Oscar, I hope it's going to be warmer in some weeks because I should build my cat tomorrow. Yes, but they'll be over 25 knots and only 3 degrees. No. Okay, that is pretty horrible. Oh my goodness. I have to keep little comments like that do hit the reset for me in how good we've got it out here, where I was assembling boats yesterday doing some rudders, and I was wearing shorts. Yeah. Okay, we've got Jose with us from Macau. Nice to have you with us. Yay. All right, we're going to go on to our next preloaded question. Just accessing the log of questions here. All right, this is a juicy one, actually. This is a question from Matt. Matt says, he's looking at buying a boat and he can't decide between the Hobie 16 and the Getaway. I know what you're thinking. All right, these are two quite different boats, but how should we do this? The pros and cons of each boat, perhaps. Let's do it like that. So firstly, the pros and cons of the Getaway. The first major stumbling point with the Getaway is going to be whether or not you can find a used one. Because I'm pretty sure, I know Jose's got a Getaway, is that anybody who's got a Getaway isn't particularly likely to sell it. And there are far fewer Getaways in the world than there are Hobie 16s. In fact, there are more Getaways. I don't know how many there are, but I would guess there's not more than 1,000 in the world. Is that a good guess? Which means finding a used one is going to be pretty tough. First stumble of the Getaway. Second negative point of the Getaway is it is heavier and heavier, and it's got smaller sails. It's not as quick. It's not as performance oriented as the 16. So the Getaway is, I'm going to use the word, slower. But there are many, many positive points for the Getaway. One is that you've got a trampoline between the bows of the boat, doubling your trampoline space. This is an absolute, in certain conditions, it's the party express. Yeah, if you want to just drive onto the beach, say, who wants to come for a sail? And 5 people say, oh, yeah. You can all go at the same time, have a lovely time. You've got the wings on there as well. You've got an enormous amount of space and volume in the hulls to carry a lot of passengers. So the Getaway is really good for that purpose. It's a lot easier to sail than the 16. A lot more forgiving. It's got the roto-molded hulls, which means those hulls really are going to last forever, and they require zero maintenance. Very nice. The wings on the Getaway as well, when you're trapezing off the wings, oh yes, now that is very cool. I've only done the wings trapezing off Hobie 17 and the Hobie 18 Magnum, but yes, trapezing off the wings is fantastic. You get a lot of leverage like that, so you can pin down a lot of power. So those would be the key points for the Getaway. For the 16, I think I've been going on about the 16 a reasonable amount, and the 16 is very quick, feels great. It's lighter. It's about 40 kilos lighter than the Getaway, but shares fairly similar dimensions. So it does get up and going a lot earlier in wind strength doesn't require as much wind to get a Hobie 16 going. But when looking at purchasing one of these boats, the main thing with the 16 is there's so many out there of different vintages. So you really can, I think to a certain degree, you can pick and choose. So there we go. I think that's about as far as we'll take it for now with these, with the Getaway 16 comparison. But I think the Getaway is a great choice if what you're looking for is less performance, more user-friendly, more kind of like options for how many people you can sail with. You could sail it solo, you could sail it with 4 people on board quite happily, whereas a 16 will start really struggling, especially if it's windy, with that many people on board. Okay, we got Max in Rossenheim. Snowing again. Nice to see you in a short sleeve t-shirt. Funny you should mention it. Yes, this is one of the new range at totaljoyrider.com. Head over there if you want to get a t-shirt. And I have to say, it's nice. Feels good. And it's now one of my favorite 2 t-shirts. Check out Show Us Your Cat 95 to see more. Okay. Timon says, last week we had 20 degrees in the north of Germany and today it's snowing. I don't like the weather in Germany. Oh dear. Okay, Timon, you need to come to Greece to get a bit of the good stuff. I know it's not always possible, but there we go. All right, Pesty Pester says, whatever the question, the answer is always the Hobie 16. All right, Kurosh, we have a Getaway on our beach. It's 180 kilograms. Just looking at it, the mast has no diamond wires. Main stay wires going to be all the way to the top of the mast. It's very different. Oh, I didn't know that the rigging goes right to the top. That is different. Okay, we've got Matthias. Has anybody lost notifications from Joyrider TV? It's where click the bell, but it's discovered it's disabled, no notifications for some time. Ooh, yeah, it's not, I have to just say, it's not from my end. I haven't changed anything at all. It's got to be something that YouTube have done, unbelling a lot of your subscriptions. So everybody, if you're not getting those notifications, then just check you have got your bell icon illuminated. What's the weight of a 16, says Oscar? I think it's 140 kilograms, which gives it an amazing power to weight ratio. Aha, we've got Gunny Duns on board. Hello, Joe. Hope the weather there is great. Yes, it's very nice. What do you suggest doing? Buying a cat or learning to sail or learning to sail? Oh, okay. What Mr. Gunny Duns, sorry, I'm assuming it's Mr. Because I know that on the analytics of the YouTube channel, it's like 5% of viewers are female. Everyone else is male. And pretty much everyone's in America in the kind of, in the big picture sort of thing. What to do? Buy a boat and learn on that boat, or learn to sail and then buy the boat? Yeah, so there's pros and cons for both. One of the pros of buying a boat first is then you've made the investment and you are going to put the hours in, whatever the weather, because maybe you've just spent like €2,000 on a boat for every day it's sitting there not being sailed. Perhaps in your mind you're like, oh, I really should get out on the boat, or perhaps even just, you can learn so much from tinkering with the boat. What's that? Tinkering. Just fixing your own boat and things, working on your boat. So you can, it's good to learn how the boat works, like mechanically, at the same time as learning how to sail it. So I think probably in the long run, if you bought the boat and got involved that way, you'd probably learn a bit faster But at the start of your sailing career, some lessons are certainly going to really give you that turbo boost to get you going. So perhaps the thing to do would be to go and do a weekend at a sailing centre, do a course for a weekend, and then start looking at picking up a boat. And until you've picked up the boat, keep doing more courses, because those courses with qualified instructors are really going to skyrocket your experience and make it a lot safer as well. All right, Timon says, this year I have unfortunately planned my whole vacation on the Baltic Sea with my FX1. Nice. I think if you've got your own boat, you definitely you do well to use your own boat. Some people actually bring their boat down here, put it on a trailer, put it behind your put it behind whatever you're driving, and then we'll see you on the beach. We'll sort out some parking for you. All right, James, hi, taking my first sailing class next month. Super excited. Great stuff, James. Let us know where that is, perhaps. All right, Robin says, Matthias, noticed that too. Unclicked and re-clicked the bell, started getting notifications again. Okay. James says, is monohull easier to learn on than a cat? A bigger monohull will be, to be honest, it's just different. There are different techniques. If you're going to pursue quite a long sailing career, it's definitely a good idea to have some monohull experience, because there are more monohulls out there than catamarans, and it's much, much easier once you've done some monohull sailing to switch to a catamaran, rather than learning to start with on a catamaran and then later on switching to a monohull, because the monohull is unstable, which means if you're in the wrong place on the boat for any length of time, you're quite likely to capsize if it's a smaller monohull, or it's certainly going to feel pretty off balance if it's a bigger one. Whereas on a catamaran, you can be in the wrong place on the boat for your whole sailing career and not really notice until you start getting into sailing in some stronger winds or in a competition. So for that reason, starting off on a monohull, you're going to be overall a better sailor in the long run than just steaming straight in on a catamaran. Steaming straight in on a catamaran, you'll be good at catamaran sailing, but your overall sailing ability generally is not going to be quite as good. It's the same with people who learnt sailing on bigger boats, on yachts and large keel boats. They are never going to be, all right, not never, but largely, they're not going to be as competent and skilled as people who learnt to sail on dinghies, which you have to focus a lot more on the stability of the boat, and you can't get away with making mistakes like you can on the catamaran or on the large keel boats. There we go. Okay, James is taking a class on a large lake in the southern USA. Cool. All right, then we've got Aola Surf. Hi. Aola Surf. Experienced on Hobie 16 and NACRA 5.8, but have a chance at a deal on a Hobie 21. What do you think of a Hobie 21 other than it is really big? Yeah, really big are definitely the two words that spring to mind when describing the Hobie 21. And third word, again, I hate to use this word, but this one is going to be heavy. Yeah, it's a big boat. The Hobie 21, I believe, weighs in at 240 kilos or thereabouts, which definitely means you're not going to be handling that boat on land on your own. If you're going to leave it on a mooring or in some sort of marina or floating at all times, then you'll be able to manage it alone. Otherwise, you will be restricted to sail only when you've got somebody there to help you with the boat. but it is an absolute massive beast, and it goes like a truck. Oh yes. So if it's in good condition and you've got space to put it as well, because that thing with the wings as well, you can of course fold the wings in for parking, but she's going to take up some room. If you've got a nice place to launch, plenty of space to sail it in, then yeah, do it. It is a very special boat, and I know that they don't come up for sale very often, so well worth a look. All right. Great to have you all with us, by the way. It's good to have such a lot of banter today. It's nice. Right, Francisco, do you know how to tie the lines of the mast rotation bar on a Hobie 18? Thanks. Yeah, I haven't actually seen a Hobie 18 for quite some time, but I'm pretty sure it goes like this. Let's go with the black one. All right, how are we going to do this? Like this. So here is, oh yeah, sorry, just to, Francisco's asked how to tie the lines for the mast rotation on a Hobie 18. So here is the mast rotation bar. Underneath the bar is the boom, like this. And then on top of the boom, I'm pretty sure this is how it is. You've got a cleat. What's that type of cleat called? Is it called a clam cleat? I think it's a clam cleat. So the cleat is inside. At the back of the cleat, there's a little bit kind of there. So let's draw some string in blue. All right, so this is the way to route your mast rotation line. So it's going to tie off around the back part of the cleat, maybe with a bowline or maybe with a lazy kite surfer's knot. Check out my video on knots for knots. And then that rope is going to go to the spanner bar. It's going to go through the spanner bar, thus back to the cleat. And then this is your loose end with your figure of 8 knot. It's the first time I've actually drawn a figure of 8 knot. So that is how that is going to work. Thanks very much. That was a very good question, because I haven't drawn a picture for a while. I think it's important to draw some pictures. All right. So what have we got next? Oscar says buy it. Is it an LE or a formula? That's Ollie, I think. Oscar, love the 20 and the 21. It's an SE. Ooh. All right, Varga. Hello. I switched from monohull from a 420 to a Hobie 18 last summer, and it was an easy switch. Thanks for the great videos. Yes. Yeah, so there we go. If you've been doing some performance monohull sailing like the 420 or anything at all, it is quite easy to switch to a catamaran because of the stability of the catamaran. The thing that's not so easy with that transition is the psychological transition, because on a boat like a 420, when you let the mainsail out, the boat stops. Nice. On a catamaran, as we know, if you're on like a beam reach or something, you let the mainsail out. If it's windy, the boat just keeps going. It's like a runaway train. So it's learning how to deal with that and knowing what to expect. That is the psychological barrier that you might have. Oh, speaking of psychological barriers, very exciting is last week I actually recorded a podcast. Oh yes, with a chap called Sandy on a, on a podcast called the After Hours Lounge. And this podcast should be going live today on Spotify. So if you use Spotify, check it out. It's called the After Hours Lounge, I think, in podcasts. Yeah, so check it out. And there you'll hear me saying all the wrong things and being inappropriate. So I was actually sat here at the time as well. Very, very good. All right, so just continuing. Pedro. Pedro, yes. Nice to have you with us. I have got your questions ready to go from the preload. All right, Ollie says the 21 is, the LE is 225 kilos and the formula is 210 kilos. So I was a bit out, apologies, but still quite a heavy boat. All right, Alo Surf says, are you going to give the Tornado the beans this year and look at a great speed stick result? Yeah, I think the days of me holding back with Bad Boy 94 for fear of breaking it are going to have to come to an end, and she's going to have to be out there in quite a lot of wind. But in my experience, I have had Bad Boy 94 out in a decent amount of wind, and even in like winds of higher than 25 knots, she doesn't seem to want to go more than like 23 and a half. Whereas the Hobie 16 in the same conditions, much, much, much less effort, more speed. But yeah, there is some big speed there, some potential with the Tornado, which I really need to untap. All right, German's fan says, why don't you have a Hobie 18 at Wildwind? Do you have bad experiences with them? No, we used to have Hobie 18s at Wildwind, but it was quite a long time ago now when Hobie Cat stopped making the Hobie 18 and they replaced it with, well, I think the first boat they replaced it with was the Hobie Tiger. So we replaced it with that. And then the Pacific came along as well, which filled another gap. And because Hobie 18s weren't being made, that is why we stopped having a Hobie 18 on the beach here. I would like to have one here, but yeah, maybe we'll keep an eye out for one, because I think it would fill a gap. And I used to absolutely love sailing the Hobie 18. It's got such a great feel. Royal, hi, nice to have you with us. 2 boats and a checkered flag. Crest 24, yes, we've got your question on the preload as well. German's fan says the podcast is already on Spotify. He's just checked. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, I'm a bit worried about what I said in the podcast, to be honest. I hope it wasn't too bad. All right, so I'm going to go on to our next preloaded question. All right, we've got a question from Greg from Michigan, USA. He says, I know that when the boat is stationary, the tapes on the bridle wires show the true wind direction. Yes. But when the boat is at speed, like on a close reach, is the tape now showing apparent wind? Yes, it is, because the apparent wind is the wind that we're experiencing when we're sailing. So even when the boat is appearing to be stationary, it's probably moving a little bit, but either way, those tapes on the boat are always going to show the apparent wind. We'll just talk apparent wind very quickly. Here's the boat. We've got our true wind coming down here. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm rushing it a bit because we've been going a while and I've still got a lot to get through, I think. All right, so we've got our true wind, our induced wind created by going forwards, and then the tapes are always going to show the combination of those two, because that is what we're experiencing, and that is the apparent wind. So there we are. All right. Greg says, if so yes, the tapes are going to show the apparent wind. How do I use this information to follow an efficient 60-degree close reach? Well, to be honest, that isn't really how we would use the wind indicators at the front. If the only two courses where we're really going to sit at a specific angle is going to be either on an upwind course, where we're going to be looking at the telltales on the jib for our course, or on a downwind course. And on that downwind course, that is when we're going to be looking at the wind indicators on the bridle wires. At all other times, on the beam reach, like in this picture, or the close reach, which would be a bit higher, what we're more likely to do is we're going to pick where we're sailing to, like perhaps there is a buoy there. So we're going to pick where we're sailing to, and we're going to steer to that mark, and then we're going to trim the sails to our course, rather than wanting to keep the boat accurately on a 60-degree close reach, which isn't really something that we would do. What you could do if you really wanted to do that would be to get a more sophisticated wind indicator, like a there's one called a hawk, I believe, which has a little arrow and then some, it has an arrow and then some guide bars. So here we go. How does this look? I haven't seen one of these for a bit, but it would have, this, I don't even know where I'm going with this. So it has an arrow, which, like a weather vane sort of thing, and then some guide arms like this. That's a pretty poor picture. You could look it up. It's called a hawk wind indicator, and that you can set the angle of those guide arms, line up the arrow with those, and that will tell you. All right, just following. Oh, I see there's a bit of there's some anticipation just building now about the podcast. Great stuff. Flups, darups, great. Yeah, great to have you with us as always. All right, James says, when you started, how long did it take you to feel confident sailing solo? It was pretty quick, really, because when I started, I was very young. I was like maybe 12, 13 years old. And when you're really young, you don't really have in your mind the danger involved. You're only just like, this is amazing at all times. So for that reason, I didn't have any problems with confidence at all. I just steamed in. I sailed every single day, which gave me a really good kind of like base. Okay, with regards to the podcast, after I've finished, I'll find it and I'll put it on in the community tab on the Joyrider TV channel here. I'll also share it on the Facebook page as well. Okay, all right. So I think at this point, I just say this, by the way, because after I've edited this video afterwards, I'll put some adverts in here because that is good for the algorithm of YouTube. So I'm just going to take a quick commercial break if you're watching this later. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. All right, so next question. We've got one from Kurosh, who's actually here live, but very wise. Kurosh was just making sure he wasn't going to miss the question. All right, this is a really, really good question. Kurosh says, what is the performance difference between a deck sweeper sail and a regular sail? He says, he's noticed some sails have, just to say it more briefly, some sails have got a massive top batten, so the top of the sail is really, really big. Others have got a very small top batten, especially in the A-class boats. The A-class is definitely at the cutting edge of sail design. This seems to be where everything comes from. But firstly, I'm just going to draw what a deck sweeper sail looks like. This is going to be a great picture, by the way. Let's start off with the mast. And there is the top of the hull. Maybe a bit like a Condor or a Hurricane 4.9. Didn't have a deck sweeper. Then maybe we'll start at the bottom. So the bottom of the sail on the deck sweeper actually comes all the way down to the trampoline, goes up to the clew, and then, oh dear, no, got to do it nicely, haven't we? All right, it's not the best picture, but you get the idea. The sail comes right down to the trampoline, and yeah, it's a pretty bad picture, to be honest. I have to sort this out because I can't bear to look at it. All right. So the point of firstly, the deck sweeper sail, these first came along in the A-class boats. The A-class boats are foiling the ones at the cutting edge. They then got adopted by the Formula 18 class, and I believe now the Formula 16s are looking at the deck sweeper as well. The reason why, or actually what the deck sweeper does, because it's putting sail area right at the bottom. So what it's doing is it's moving the center of effort of the sail lower down. So it's putting more power lower down in the sail. What that is going to do is that's going to mean that the boat isn't going to be effectively as top heavy. So it's not going to want to lift the hull as much. Instead, that sail area is going to be working more to drive the boat forwards rather than to lift the hull, making it faster. The deck sweeper has been proven to be quicker in all conditions because we're lowering the center of effort in the sail, making the sail more efficient and effective. What we're also doing with the deck sweeper is a lot of the boats with the deck sweeper actually have a solid trampoline. Like if you saw the C2 videos, the trampoline is not the mesh. Instead, it's like more of a dacron, a solid cloth. So it actually forms what they're calling an end plate to the sail. If you look at the end of a wing on an airplane, it has this piece that goes up like that. If this is the wing, here's the airplane. This is actually an X-wing fighter, of course. But yeah, the X-wing fighter, they've got really good end plates on the end of the wings. So our trampoline is actually creating that end plate on the end of the sail. And what that is going to do is it's going to totally eliminate any spill of wind going from one side of the sail to the other side of the sail. Oh, it's called a winglet. Thank you. Okay. No, the sail area of the deck sweeper is exactly the same as the sail area of the conventional sail. It's just kind of like sail area has been taken from the back and the top and put at the bottom. That is how that has changed. And then, so that is stopping the wind from spilling from the windward side to the leeward side, which is reducing the amount of drag, making the boat go faster. And that's why we've got a solid trampoline. I think that is number one point of your deck sweeper question there. The second point is in the A-class boats, if you look at pictures of A-class boats, there are some, whether it's a deck sweeper or not, there are some where the top of the sail, the whole sail is almost like a rectangle with this enormous top batten, something like that. And then there are some, here we go, where the sail is much smaller at the top, which actually looks a lot more like how all of the catamaran sails were perhaps over 15 years ago, maybe over 20 years ago. This is how most catamaran sails looked. So in the A-class boats, they've gone from that to this. The reason that they've done that, the benefit of this shape in those boats is because the boats are foiling, they're so fast that we definitely don't want to have the big top on the sail, because all that is going to do is going to put more sail area at the top, making the boat want to heel more. And on the foiling boats, they definitely want to be sailing flat. And then also, when the top of the sail folds away to spill wind, which it's going to do quite early on a foiling boat, that top of the sail, the bit that's folded away, is going to be forming drag, causing drag at the top of the sail, which you just don't need. So this sail shape for a very, very, very fast boat is going to be much lower drag. Whereas on a slightly less fast boat, like on an F18, for example, it's not going to be like a rectangle like the older A-class boats, but it's going to have a longer top batten. And what that long top batten does is it will respond to the gusts. So it means you don't have to play the main sheet as much with the big top batten, because in the gust, the top batten is going to bend away. When the gust goes, it's going to bend back. So it's kind of like having a bit of suspension in your sail, so it gives a bit more. Whereas this style of sail is going to require a lot more active main sheet work. There we go. I thought that was a pretty good answer there. I did actually do a bit of research for this, and I will on the, what do you call it, on totaljoyrider.com, I'll write up my research findings and as a small article there in the coming days. All right, so Pedro says, how do you keep your sails out of season? Vertical or horizontal position? A mylar one, and do you take out the battens? In the mylar sails, all right, so just to rephrase the question, Pedro says, how do we store the sails if they're going to be in storage for a long period? Do we put them flat or do we have them standing up? And what do you do with the battens? In all the mylar sails, what we do is we totally loosen off all of the batten ties, but apart from the top 2 or 3 battens, depending on the shape of the sail, we'll leave them in. But we will take them out because otherwise they don't roll so well. And what you can get if you leave the top ones in, and this goes for just on a day-to-day basis as well, if you leave the top ones in, what you might get is a twist going into those battens, which means that your batten's going to be twisted. You don't want that. So we take those battens out, but we just untie and loosen the rest of the battens. We store the sails flat generally, just because that's, I think that is a better way to store them, but just definitely without heavy things on top. Like we definitely we have a pile of sails, and the 16 sails definitely go on the bottom because they're the heavy ones, and that Dacron isn't really going to suffer the same consequences. All right, Graham says, why don't you sail monohulls? I do sail monohulls, but I'm very much a catamaran expert, if I do say so myself. Catamaran sailing is my kind of field of expertise, whereas monohull sailing is more something I do for fun. So I don't make so many monohull videos because there are hundreds, thousands of people out there who are much, much better at monohull sailing than I am. But with the catamaran sailing, I'm fairly confident that I've got a lot to give to the global catamaran sailing community. Although I'm not at the front of the fleet when it comes to racing, I've certainly been doing it for a long time and teaching for a long time as well. So I know which end the front is. Okay, Aolo Surf says, you can say you are an expert, saw your windsurfing video. Do you enjoy that or kiting? I enjoy it all, to be honest. Just depends on the conditions which are better for what sport. Like if there's someone else. If it's flat water and two people, 25 knots, Hobie 16, lovely. If it's really, really strong, like 30 knots plus, then going out Hobie 16 sailing is still a lot of fun, but I'm not going to maintain that for a very long period of time because the risk of something bad happening is pretty big. If you go out and deliberately sail in over 30 knots on a catamaran, there's a lot going on there and things can happen. It's much more appropriate to go out windsurfing where you put on like a 3.5 meter sail and it's really easy. In fact, even in 40 knots of wind. I've done a lot of windsurfing. I used to do my winters in Cape Town, windsurfing and kite surfing. So I became reasonably competent in both sports. And as Germans fan says, yes, check out the old videos on the channel. There is some windsurfing and kite surfing in Cape Town on there. That's how I kind of started with all this. And yeah, so in waves, big waves, breaking waves, definitely windsurfing or kiting because I like riding the waves. But kite surfing fits into the same ideal wind bracket as cat sailing. So it just depends on who's around, what the situation is, what's more practical on the day. Like if I've gone somewhere in an aeroplane, taking a kite is much more practical than taking a Hobie 16. All right. Graham says, does a dagger board make a difference on the cat? Yes, it does. But I'm just going to draw this picture quickly. It's there's three different main types of hull shape. If you've heard this before, you can make a cup of tea, perhaps. All right, so three different. I'm going to do this in black just so it's a bit easier to see, perhaps. All right, so we've got three different types of hull shape on a catamaran, generally speaking. We've got, this is looking from the end. This is the Hobie 16 hull shape, where we've got a flat side and a curved side. That flat side is what stops the boat from slipping sideways, and it gives us something that helps us to pivot when we tack. So that is the first type, the asymmetric hull shape. The second type is the symmetrical hull shape. This would be like on a Tornado or on an F-18. The symmetrical hull shape will have a dagger board or centerboard, and that is what's going to stop the boat from slipping sideways. That's going to give us our pivot point when we want to tack. And the same as with a laser or something, we will lift the dagger board if we're going off the wind, put it all the way down for upwind. And the third hull shape is the symmetrical hull, but with a skeg. This would be like on a Dart 18, most famously, I believe. And it's the skeg which is going to stop the boat from slipping sideways and which is going to give us our pivot point. Okay, if I can just ask for no further questions just for a bit, just so I can go through the preloaded ones, because we've been going over an hour now and I've still got quite a few. All right, so this next one's from Ryan. That's not because I don't appreciate you all. I appreciate you very much, but I also appreciate everybody who's preloaded the questions and couldn't be here at this time. So let's spare a thought for them. Thanks. All right, we've got Ryan who says, what catamaran would be a good starting point to transition to sailing, to go from sailing lasers? Yeah, okay. I know how to use both types of spinnaker. Not confident on the trapeze, want to learn it all eventually. Okay, Ryan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie your answer in with another answer of a preloaded question later on, where we're actually, it's going to be a big one. So stay tuned, because we've got a big one coming up, sorry, which is, it's going to blow everyone's minds. So stay tuned. Hit the like button as well if you're here, or if you're not. Okay, next preloaded question. We've got Pedro in Chile, who's actually here. Hi, Pedro. All right. This is a tricky one, actually. He says, how do you keep your catamaran on the beach when you haven't got wheels or a sandy beach? This is an issue. What the only thing that springs to mind immediately is what the guys that used to sail where I sailed in Felixstowe on the east coast of England, what they did with their 16s, and that is actually to take, this may sound ridiculous, to actually take a section of drain pipe, you know, the like guttering, which is shaped, is plastic that's shaped like that. And then what they did is they drilled some holes in it so that they could put some like elastic ties. And then what would happen is the boat would sit. So this was a Hobie 16. The boat would sit in this piece of guttering, and they'd slide the whole thing down the beach so there wasn't wear on the bottom of the boat. This was on like a stony beach. So this really did save the hulls. That is actually the only answer I can come up with, apart from using the road trailer to launch and recover the boat, which I know I've seen on Show Us Your Cat. A lot of people launch and recover their boats using the road trailer, but it's not ideal because it's really bad for the bearings in the wheels. Much better to get hold of a launching trolley. So there we go. I hope that was a good answer for you there, Pedro. Sorry, I can't give you more on that. And the next one is from Crest24, who I believe might still be here live. All right, he says, what product / supplies do you use to shine up chalky hulls? My boat is older and the hull needs some buffing. Yes. All right, I'm sure this is the sort of thing that the whole of the Joyrider TV global community really get excited about when it comes to products, because everybody has different products that they use in the place where they are, because of course in different countries different products are available. But what we've had a chap working here for many years called Marco. He does a great job maintaining the boats, and the stuff that he uses to really get those hulls looking good is a rubbing compound. It's actually an automotive, it's for cars, rubbing compound, and it's a P1500, which I believe basically does the same job as a really fine sandpaper, but also the rubbing compound is taking the deeper scratches out of the hulls and bringing them back. And then with a buffing machine or a lot of elbow grease, that is the only answer I've got to that question. Like your kind of fiberglass stuff and hull maintenance, that kind of thing is not my strong point. I have to be honest with you there. All right, we've got Pedro again in Chile. All right, this is a good one. This could help a lot of people. he says, on the water while you're sailing, how is best to park your boat? Perhaps if you're having a rest, if you've got something you need to repair, perhaps you're having a sandwich, maybe a cigarette. All right, what you can do is put the boat in what's called in English hove to. Okay, this is how we would do it. What we do to park your boat, any wind strength, wind as always coming from the top of the board, we'll park the boat on kind of like an upwind point of sail. Then the next thing we can do is we'll put the mainsail out. Then if you've got a jib, we'll actually put the jib onto the wrong side of the sail. This means that there's still going to be some pressure in the mainsail, which is pulling the boat up towards the wind. But because we're not moving and the jib is backed, that's going to be pulling the front of the boat the other way. End result, we're stopped. But what's important in this is called hove to. In this position is you put your rudders hard across like this. So the rudders are also pushing the boat up into the wind, but the jib is stopping the boat from going all the way into the wind, which otherwise it could go into the wind and keep turning, which would be maybe a bit unnerving. You certainly wouldn't be as relaxed on the boat. What you can do further to that is let the downhaul off as well, like we talked about earlier. If you are parking for any period of time, it's a good idea to let the downhaul off, because if it is windy, the downhaul will make the sail flap, and you certainly don't want that. And yeah, you can then experiment with how much main sheet to have in with the traveller out, just so that the boat sits the most nicely. It will be different for different types of boat. And if you've got the main sheet really loose and it's windy, there is a chance, even with the downhaul off, the boom could swing a bit, which could, perhaps you're doing something on the leeward side of the boat, you could be in danger of banging your head. Nobody wants that. So that is what we could do. There we are, how to park the boat, hove to. And then from that position, to get the boat going, it's actually really, really easy. All you've got to do is straighten up the rudders, and there'll be enough in the jib to bring the front of the boat away from the wind, and you'll start sailing again. Very good. If you're just stopping for a shorter time, like maybe you've got to tie up your shoe, for example, you don't necessarily have to put the jib on the wrong side. If your mainsail is all the way out, by putting the rudders all the way across, there shouldn't be enough to get you all the way head to wind. So that's going to do that as well. Okay, we've just got 2 preloaded questions left. The next one is actually from Robin. Thanks for sticking around, Robin. Robin actually put this in a video as well. Robin says, I've got crazy loud rudder hum. She's done absolutely everything. Installed new bushings, rudder casing, gudgeons, new pins, bushes on the rudder. Oh, shims, I like to call those, on the rudder pivots. She's sanded down the trailing edge, cleaned up the leading edge. None of it makes a difference. Now, unfortunately, there's 2 different types of rudder hum. You wouldn't believe this. One is the high-pitched sort of squeal. This is the high-pitched squeal that we first heard big time when racing Hobie Tigers back in the 90s, having 100 boats with razor-sharp dagger boards. It was like a swarm of very irate bees coming to get you. But what Robin has is the low-pitched hum. Like, let's see if we can do this. Like that one. We feeling it? Yeah, that low pitched hum, unfortunately, is because of the construction of the rudder blades. You'll get that with either the nylon or the Lexan rudder blades, whereas with the epoxy rudder blades or the fiberglass rudder blades or the EPOs or the White Knights, basically the more expensive rudder blades won't create that noise. So that, I'm afraid, it means there's not much you can do about it. But I had a think to see how can we reduce the noise. And there's one thing that I came up with. I haven't actually tried it. Let's see how we can draw this. So if this is our rudder stock, looking at it from the back, yeah, can we see that? So that would be the bolt that holds the rudder blade in. We've then got the rudder blade. Robin's rudder blades are black, very tasteful. Probably a bit longer than that, I should think. Now, if there is any sort of gap between the rudder stock and the rudder blade, what you could possibly do, which I don't know, it may work, it might not work, is to put in that gap a small layer of rubber, which might just be enough to take some of that vibration out. It might kind of dampen the sound. That is the only thing that I could think of. And whether there would actually be enough room in that gap to get a bit of rubber, maybe you could get like 1 mil of rubber in there. But that is all that I could think of, apart from changing the rudder blades, of course, which I would almost bet my hat on it that would eliminate the noise immediately. Hutchie says, rudder hum due to high speed, more noise the better. Yeah, I feel sometimes, especially with the low-pitched noise, because we have it on some of our boats, that low-pitched noise does sound like it's slowing you down, and you don't want that. Oh, no. All right, so well done for sticking around. I've got this absolute humdinger of a final question / answer. You're not going to think it's a humdinger, but it is, believe me. All right, I've even written some notes, if I can find them. All right, here we go. Yeah. All right, so I've just taken my other list away, so I can't. Yeah, so this question was from Ewan, I believe. I'm just going to have to check. All right, we're going back. Yeah, it was from Ewan. And Ewan says, what tips for buying a catamaran? All right, so this is a massively broad question that could be taken in any direction at all. There's a lot of tips for buying a catamaran. Like, I did make a video of what to look for when buying a used boat like that, and how much is it going to cost. Check out that video, because that will tell you about the areas where you should be looking if you're actually going to physically look at a boat and you want to know how much it's going to cost you. Things like, does the trampoline need replacing? How much will it be to replace the rigging? Are the hulls soft at all? How the sails, the ropes, everything else. But the direction I've gone in is, what type of catamaran should you buy? And this answers the other question from earlier as well. Which type of catamaran is perfect? There's 3 elements. I'm actually going to turn this into perhaps a written piece, or this is my new thing, is writing articles. Either an article or a video on its own. is how to choose a type of catamaran. 3 things that are going to influence it. Number 1 is your experience. How much have you done before? Have you done any sailing? Are you coming from a 420 or a laser, perhaps? In which case, that should push you up the level of experience required a bit. Second one is, what location are you going to be? What's the venue where you're going to be doing your sailing? This is going to influence your decision. If you're going to be doing your sailing on a small lake or a river, then perhaps going for a Hobie 21 LE is not going to be the right choice. You're going to run out of space pretty quickly. Thanks, Robin. You know, where are you going to store the boat as well? Is there a sailing club with a boat park? Are you going to have to tow it to where it is that you're sailing every time, and so on? And then the third thing to keep in mind when choosing what type of boat is, what is the actual purpose of that boat going to be? This perhaps takes us right back to the start where we were talking about Hobie 16 or Hobie Getaway, which one to go for. Yeah, so is your purpose of the boat going to be just for taking the kids out for a sail? Maybe like Keith, hello Keith in Okinawa. Are you going to go fishing? You're going to catch some big fish out there? Then perhaps I'd say Keith could probably, for his fishing, a Getaway might be a really good choice with those wings on the side, a bit more surface area, some more rod mounting options. Or are you going out to see if you can get on the speed stick? Well, everyone can get on the speed stick, but can you get towards the top of the speed stick? Then perhaps something a bit quicker might be appropriate. Are you going to race? Do you want to go racing at a pretty high level? Do you want a boat that's going to do everything? Wow, the options. So here we go. Now we're getting to the juice. You ready for the juice? Here it is. So the different types of catamaran are going to fall into some different categories. The first one, and this is becoming increasingly popular and interesting, I'm very interested and love to get hold of one, is the inflatable catamarans, such as, I found some more brands, by the way. We've got the Mini Cat. 2 notable of the Mini Cat range is the Guppy, which is their really, really small one, or the 420, which is their most popular. There's the Happy Cat and the Smart Cat, different brands. The reason for going for an inflatable might be, with all of it, cost, of course, is an element. So we don't need to keep repeating cost being an element. But the inflatable boats, new, are going to be cheaper than probably all of the others. So if cost is an element and you want to have a less expensive boat, then an inflatable might be something to go for. If you're not going to use it that much, if you're not looking for the highest speed, but you want to have that feeling of flying a hull, going fast, feeling the speed, because the inflatables have got much lower hulls, which means you'll feel the speed a lot more than in perhaps some of the bigger boats. Like perhaps could be, an analogy might be driving a go-kart compared to driving a Mercedes-Benz estate car down the Autobahn. The go-kart is probably going to feel much quicker because you're much lower down. Same with the inflatable. You might get a bit more of the feeling of speed. Yeah, inflatable would not be a good choice for fishing. Thank you, Germans fan, for pointing that out. But the inflatable, the best selling point of the inflatable is the storage and transport options with the inflatable boat. I know with the Mini Cat Guppy, you can actually put it in a bag in the boot of your car and you get to wherever you're going sailing, pull it out, off you go, after you've put it together, of course. The other inflatable boat that I didn't mention is the Catapult. This is a British design, but it does something different to the other inflatables. It's actually quite a high performance boat, and not as compact as the others. So I think unless you're racing a catapult, it wouldn't be a boat to seek out, because the one downside with an inflatable, as you may imagine, especially if you're going fishing, is the potential for the puncture. All right, next category is roto-molded. These are boats which are made effectively of plastic, and this plastic is extremely strong. It will last forever and a day. Examples of the roto-molded boats would be the Hobie Wave. The Hobie Wave, great boat if you're just getting into some cat sailing, but also there is an active Hobie Wave racing fleet in the USA. I don't know about other countries if they're racing waves, but I'm actually a member of the Waves group on Facebook. Very glad to be there. It's an honor. So the Hobie Wave, it's very simple. Been in touch with a guy called Fox, who is he's writing a screenplay featuring a Hobie Wave that might raise an eyebrow. There's also the Hobie Getaway, which we spoke about earlier. Very versatile. The Hobie T1, we featured one in, Jeff went and sailed one in Show Us Your Cat a couple of episodes ago. This is one of the more modern designs of roto-molded boat, which is a bit more performance. So with the roto-molded stuff, it's not going to be as quick as the fiberglass for the one reason, which is the roto-molded boats are generally heavier. Perhaps one more reason might be that they're not quite as stiff as the fiberglass as well. So these are the considerations with the roto-molded boats. But generally, the roto-molded is less complex, a lot easier to sail. They're made to be simple. A lot of them don't have a boom. So it's a great option if you are at the start of the sport. Other boats, the most popular roto-molded boat, of course, was the Dart 16. Don't believe they're produced anymore, but there's a lot of them out there secondhand, and they've got a great hull shape as well. It's actually the same hull shape as the Spitfire, except the Spitfire has got dagger boards instead of the skeg. Then the RS Cat 16, there's the Topaz range as well, as pointed out by Hutchie. Thanks, Hutchie. All right, then we've got the next category, the smaller fiberglass boats, which might be a good choice as a first catamaran. I only know about some of these through Show Us Your Cat. We've got the Calypso, the Marry Cat, the Hobie 15, the Hobie Dragoon, the Hawk Surf Cat, and there are many boats in the Top Cat range coming from Germany. All very good options as a first boat. But what we want to consider is how long are you going to hold on to this boat for? Perhaps some of the boats which would be a good first choice, maybe in 5 years' time, you might feel, all right, it's time for a Hobie 16, quite likely. But then you'll always be able to sell a boat on. Like with a lot of catamarans, they do come down to a value and they won't drop below that value. Like I think for a lot of boats, if you pick up a boat for $1,000 or €1,000, it's not going to drop much lower, because if it's already 30 years old, it being 35 years old isn't going to take the value down. So it's a fairly good investment buying a catamaran. There you go. Did you know? You could tell that to your significant other who doesn't want you to buy one. Okay, then next we've got the all-time classics, which get their own category. These are the Dart 15, Dart 18, the Prindle 16, the Prindle 18, and of course the Hobie 16. These are all fantastic boats, but they're all old designs, which means they're a little bit more challenging to sail than some of the newer designs, but they are all absolute fantastic choices. Then continuing, just going to up my pace a little bit here. I've written, this is called the larger classic or the more simple of the performance catamarans. Here we go. This is what I've got on the list. Is the Hobie 18 Classic, the Hobie Pacific, the Hobie Pearl. So this is actually in chronological order of when they came along. The Hobie 18 Classic with dagger boards does the same job as the Hobie 18, except it's for heavier people. The Hobie Pacific does the same job as the Hobie Tiger, but much less technical and more durable with the skeg hulls. The Hobie Pearl came after the Pacific as kind of like a middle ground, more of a middle ground between the Tiger and the Pacific, because it's got the centre boards on there. So, and it's a bit more performance than the Pacific. Then we've got the Nacra 570, the Nacra 500, the Prindle 18-2, and the Prindle 19, which I've put into this category. Hope you're enjoying this. A lot of research here. Then, next category are the racers. Ooh, yeah. So the racers such as the Tornado, Formula 18, Formula 16, the Nacra 17, the Hobie 20, which we've seen a lot of recently on Show Us Your Cat, and the Hurricane 5.9. The racers are generally a lot more technical. Generally, they have a spinnaker on board, dagger boards or a centre board. They'll be a lot lighter built, so they'll be more fragile. This is, of course, a big point when looking. And then the final category I've got is the dedicated single-handers, such as the A-Class, the Hobie 14, the FX1, and the Prindle 15. So there you go. I think that was quite a big list, which probably didn't even answer Ewan's question, but I quite enjoyed putting it together. And yes, I am going to write an article just doing it better. There we go. There's been a bit of banter in the comments. I see Conrad says he's 14 from Langerbarn. Yeah. Yeah, I was down in Langerbarn quite a lot, Conrad. You wouldn't believe it, but I used to live in Cape Town in the off season and come up to Langerbarn to do some kite surfing. I did do the Tiger Worlds back in 2008 at Langerbarn. What a corker that was. I think my the boat that I chartered for the week is still around. I think the sail number was 2565. It's a white mainsail. Next time there's an event on, I know they just had the Nationals, but keep an eye out for that. Wondering what your recommendation for a GPS to track our speed is. Currently learning from my father on a 16, and I'm very competitive. Great stuff. Yeah, I would. One that you've already got probably is some sort of telephone. Get a dry bag for your telephone and download an app. The app that I would use is Strava, but the only reason I use Strava is because I use Strava. So I haven't actually looked for any other apps, but make sure, of course, it is a very reliable dry bag. The other thing you could do is get a GPS watch, such as I use a Locosys GW60, but there are so many out there. Like there's a lot in the Garmin range as well. I also use a Timex Global Trainer GPS, which is discontinued, but you can still find them secondhand. The other is to get a dedicated GPS device, like what we saw Tiger had on his 20 on Show Us Your Cat 95, was the Velocitech GPS. These are quite expensive, but they do what they're designed to do, which is to tell you how fast you're going. Personally, I'd get a Velocitech Speed Puck. I think they retail at about $250 US, but a very, very good, massive display. So even if you mount one on your bridle wires, you'll be able to see it when you're right at the back. There we good. Here we go. Conrad's father also was there at the Worlds, sailing with his brother. Oh, nice. Nice to know. That was a great event. Great place to be for a week as well. Very good. All right, I think we're pretty much there. We've been going for an hour and a half now. I think that's probably enough. So before you go, don't forget to hit the like button. If you want to do some shopping, head over to totaljoyrider.com. I'll put some links around for that podcast if you really want. Well, no, not if you really want. If you want to listen to me talking about life and stuff with Sandy, who is the host of that podcast. Otherwise, we'll see you on Shoshakat. This is Harry, pro sailor. He's representing. Oh yeah. If you want a T-shirt with this design, but you want your boat name here and your sail number, maybe send me an email. I'll make you the design. We could even change the colours and stuff, and I'll get you that T-shirt. Wind, waves, whatever. You're the man. Thanks very much. Yeah. Thanks, Hein. Yeah, I hope you can visit too at some point. I think it's time for a beer here in Greece, which is the nice new feature of the Q&A, with it being a bit later, finishing at beer o'clock. So enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and I'll see you next week with some more of this. Whew.